Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Olivia Tang, and I work for the Office of Career Services at Marylhurst University. And we have been hosting these LinkedIn webinars and workshops for at least 2 years now. And it's just still the tool that we really feel strongly about, that any professional who really cares about the career management and where they're going and where they're currently at, they just need to be on here. So thanks again. Given this is a webinar, I will take all questions at the end via the group chat box, and you can always email me as well if there's something that you think about later on. So let's get started. Today we're going to cover why you should be on LinkedIn, essentials for completing your online profile to 100%, how to get started, and then I'm going to give you a to-do list, a call to action. So what is LinkedIn? In short, it's the world's largest professional network with over 400 million members. It's growing quickly, and really, the way I like to view it, if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, it's an online Rolodex. It is a mirror of your in-person life. A lot of people use LinkedIn, over 400 registered members, and these aren't just job seekers. These 400 members consist of other professionals, hiring managers, recruiters, organizations, and companies. And as you can see from the map, it's really spread out, and it's most heavily used in the United States of America. I mentioned earlier how recruiters are on LinkedIn, and recruiters and hiring managers are very active. So they are on here, they are looking for you, they are varied in how they use LinkedIn, but they will likely use it at some point during the hiring process. And many companies subscribe to LinkedIn's Talent Solutions service, and that makes up 64% of LinkedIn's revenue. So a lot of organizations pay to find talent on LinkedIn. So why do you need to be here? To be found. LinkedIn is part of the screening process, and you don't want to be missed. Online applications are really limiting with how much info you can provide, and LinkedIn helps provide the gap for supplemental and robust information in addition to a resume and a cover letter that just simply aren't enough. And really the most valuable part about LinkedIn is being able to learn about different people and different companies and have access to these people and these companies that you might not be able to otherwise. So first and foremost, the most important part of LinkedIn is really to have all-star status. So everything that we're going to talk about the webinar today will help lead you to all-star status. So what is it? It's really just a way of telling everyone on LinkedIn, I'm a serious professional who really cares about my online presence and my brand, and this demonstrates profile completion. If you don't have all-star status, so if you don't have 100% to achieve all-star status, you won't show up in talent recruiter searches without it. So you have many incentives to have a robust, complete all-star status profile. So how to get your profile going? Here are some basics. Get the right photo, have a compelling headline, a customized URL, which is essentially a free public website, a summary, basics that you would find on a resume, like experience, education, and skills, and recommendations, and other personal info. So this is where you're going to be a lot of your time. This is going to be your home base. So account and settings, I highly suggest you really get to know this area because this really is going to lay the foundation with how well you know LinkedIn and how you're sharing your information. So the first orange arrow, this is account and settings. And then the second orange arrow on the bottom, this is where you'll be a lot for your profile. So let's talk about the photo again. I know it may seem like common sense that all the photos on the left are wrong. And when I say professional headshot for the first bullet point, I don't necessarily mean you have to hire someone and pay someone to take your photo, although that would be great. But it can be a really simple professional photo, even taken with a smartphone. And generally, it should be you alone, a simple background, appropriate attire, and smile. I've met so many people in person And then when I look at their LinkedIn profile, they're not smiling and it just doesn't look like them. So smile, look inviting. The headline, it's not a job title. And right now I'm going to take a moment to ask you all if you can guess why a job title does not make for a strong headline. No need to respond in the chat box, just take a moment to think about this. Again, why is a job title not a strong headline? Okay, well, hopefully you've thought about it. And a job title is not a strong headline because it's limiting. It shows where you currently are, not necessarily where you want to go. And this is challenging for those who are in career transition. You're in one field, but you're trying to jump to another field, or you're in one job position, you're trying to go in a different direction. Also, if you don't have a common job title, something that's just not as well known, or there's lots of acronyms or special training to it, some might not necessarily understand what you do. So elaborate more just beyond that job title. And here's an example. This is Heather, and her headline is Digital Strategist plus Communications Specialist. This is a headline that's a combination of her previous roles and her current role. And this is a great approach to highlight the past and the present in a holistic way. She did something in the past and she's doing something now, and she wanted to combine the two to show two different skill sets. Claiming your unique URL is a part of your profile, and you can tell by the orange arrow on the bottom that that part's important that I want to highlight. See how it's just linkedin.com / her name. So don't have like 1250JX. It needs to be clean. It needs to be easy to type. It needs to be easy to read. This is especially important if you're going to include your LinkedIn profile on your resume or email signatures. Professional summary. This is the trickiest part because it has to be succinct and it has to really describe who you are, what you do, and how you do it. You need to engage the reader to read its entirety. Most recruiters spend an average of 30 seconds to a minute on a resume, and if they have the same approach for reading a LinkedIn profile, then you got to make a positive impression really quickly. So as mentioned earlier, it's got to be succinct. You can do bullet points so it's easier to read. And if you're an active job seeker, you may have a different message. You might just explicitly state and put yourself out there and say, interested in opportunities in healthcare. If you're an active job seeker and you're not afraid to say you are, this is an area where you could really say, hey, I'm looking for future opportunities. Here's an example. I'm going to give you a couple moments to skim through it. So this is Kirsten, who we saw earlier in the slide about claiming your unique URL. And as you can see, her first sentence was more so big picture, saying 15 years teaching, advising, and coaching. And then the rest of the summary was more specific, saying, as a career coach, I do this. As a program developer and administrator, I do this. The only suggestion I would have for the summary is to add numbers. This is especially important if the person who's reading your profile is a numbers person, or if you're in a numbers or results-driven industry. Experience in education, not going to go over this much. It's very straightforward. It just needs to match up with your resume. You don't want whoever is looking at your LinkedIn profile and whoever is looking at your resume, they think you're two different people. And what's neat about LinkedIn that makes it just more robust than a cover letter or a resume is that you can really embed your key achievements. So if you have examples of work, like let's say you're a photographer, include some photos. Are you a teacher or do you do guest speaking? Include a video clip or two. It's one thing to list on a resume these examples of work, and it's another to really show it. Example of experience, so listing a combination of duties and prime responsibilities as well as key achievements is really powerful. You're listing, hey, this is what I do, and here are the achievements I've done in my job. Skills and expertise. This is an area where you can bullet point your skills and abilities. I'm going to show an example in the next slide, but just for starters, don't start with too many. Don't start with more than 20. Other than that, it just feels really overwhelming. And this is a really good place for keywords. So if you're thinking about being found for certain skills or certain mastery, then this is an area to highlight those words. And a tip is to use job listings or view other profiles that you think are strong and see what relevant words they're using. So here's the example. This is Kirsten again, and this is skills and expertise that she would like to be endorsed for, that she chose to put up and have people essentially vouch for. So career counseling is really high up on the list, career development is second, and the list goes on and on. So all these different faces you see are people within her LinkedIn network that said, yes, I have seen her do career counseling, or sure, she has helped me with resume writing, so I'm going to vouch for her on that. So how do you manage these endorsements as skills? I mentioned earlier how the skills that she put up was ones she put up by choice. So focus on quality versus quantity. And when you're receiving, you can choose to accept or not accept endorsement of skills. I'm going to give you an example. Someone wanted to endorse me for HTML experience. And I know just very, very basics of HTML, not enough where I feel confident for some person to endorse me for it. So I just wrote them a note back and said, it's really kind of you to think of me for this skill, but it's just not a skill I want to be highlighted for. I just don't feel confident enough to really put that out there. And when you're giving endorsements, give endorsements that you've observed. And when I say observed, I don't mean literally. I mean ones that you have really witnessed in some way. So online collaboration is very common nowadays, and it can be very telling of one's skills, especially in today's interconnected world. It's not uncommon to work with someone that you've never met. So even though you've never met them or maybe seen them write a paper, if you're endorsing them for, let's say, strong writing skills, if you've witnessed it in some way, that counts as being able to observe that they know how to do a certain skill. So what's the difference between recommendations versus endorsements? We just covered endorsements. Recommendations are really the same concept as a traditional letter of recommendation. Ideally, they're from a current or former boss, or maybe a professor or a client you know, and it's usually asked by you, where you say, hey, I'd really like you to write me this recommendation. And you need one for all-star status. Remember how we talked about that earlier? You need a recommendation to have all-star status. So it's really important you have at least one. Endorsements generally are from professional peers who've observed your work, like I talked about earlier. They're not required for all-star completion. So they're important, but they just don't have as much weight as a recommendation. Here's an example. These are recommendations on my LinkedIn profile, and I've included recommendations from paid work and volunteer work opportunities. So I don't want you thinking like, oh, do I have to just have recommendations based on paid work? No, if you were a volunteer and if it was a meaningful or higher level volunteer type project, include it. Ask someone to write you a recommendation for it. So on here, I just gave two examples, one that was volunteer and one that was work. Personal info. This is the kind of, how should I say it? This is a optional, but really shouldn't be optional section of your profile. So how much should you add? For me, it's personal preference. I really feel strongly that you should add something. So this is a strategic way to showcase interests that maybe some companies are looking for. So if you have a hobby or a passion that's in alignment with the company, list it. Take Nike, for example. You better have some sort of sport or some sort of activity that you think is in alignment with Nike. So if you're a runner, include running. And for me, I include that I'm open to informational interviews. So that's an example of the how and why you wish to be contacted. I've mentioned, hey, I'm open to coffee. I am most helpful to those who are interested in learning about higher education and events. So it's up to you, but really this is an opportunity to just highlight you as a person when the rest of your LinkedIn profile highlights you as a professional. Here's an example. Here's Heather, who we saw earlier. She's into film, television, social media, yoga, running, and the advice for contacting her is to contact her on Twitter. Really simple, but adds a little personal touch to who she is. So etiquette. Here is how we're going to cover the basics. We're going to talk about privacy controls, requesting and accepting connections, and asking for a recommendation. First up, setting privacy controls. This is vital. This is so important to understand because I want you to feel empowered to use this tool. And most of us don't use tools when we don't understand how, or we're unsure of how our information is shared and all of that. Understand the privacy and settings area. Be found under your own terms. I'm not going to review all of these privacy controls, but I'm going to review a few that I think are the most important for those starting out in LinkedIn. The first one is turning on and off your news mentioned broadcast. That's the first line under privacy controls. This is essentially how people track your activity. So if you're an active job seeker, you're currently employed, you might not want your boss to know what you're up to, turn your broadcasts off. So then those updates aren't public. So people don't see what groups you're following or how active you are on LinkedIn. However, with that said, if you don't allow others to know what you're doing in your activity, they might not be able to help you find work. So there's pros and cons to turning your privacy settings on and off, and it's just dependent on, are you a current job seeker, are you not, and how open are you willing to be. The other area is that on how you view profiles. So if you want people to see that you've been looking at their profile and you want to know who's been looking at your profile, that has to be open. It's only fair. And if you're a job seeker, or if you're just curious, like for me, I just really want to know who's looking at my profile, that part you need to leave on. So those two, again, as I mentioned earlier, are the two most important things to begin when you're setting your privacy controls. So let's start making connections. Let's start asking people in your world to connect with you on LinkedIn online. Here's how you do it. So you invite someone on LinkedIn that you found, and don't use the default message. That's in all caps for a reason. LinkedIn has the generic default message, I'd like to add you to my professional LinkedIn network. No, don't do that. Include a brief sentence to jog their memory. Write something like, it was great taking 5 courses with you last term. I'd really like to stay connected on LinkedIn. Or I enjoyed volunteering with you at that hospital fundraiser last week. Let's stay in touch. Give something where if that person has a hard time remembering you, or if maybe your LinkedIn profile picture isn't up yet and they don't recognize you, give something to jog their memory. So etiquette on the recommendation request. Similar train of thought. Don't use the LinkedIn default. Help them help you. The more you help the writer, the better the writing will be. Mention a specific project, a result, an achievement, something that helps them narrow down, okay, this person is asking me to write them a recommendation on LinkedIn, which is essentially the same as a letter of recommendation. What type of things do they want me to highlight? And here is that to-do list that I mentioned. This is your call to action. Please print this out if you get a chance to email me and ask for the presentation, or you can take a screenshot of this or jot them down right now. I want you to become familiar with the privacy settings and use them. Empower yourself. Understand what's being shared and how you're being shown to the world. Start linking with those in your in-person network. Start linking with people who are immediate contacts. LinkedIn would call them first-degree contacts. So when you start asking more people to be your connections, LinkedIn has algorithms to show, are you a first-degree contact, which is someone who you probably see on a daily basis, like a coworker or peer or a friend or family member. And then there's second degree, that's an acquaintance. And then third degree is, well, you don't know each other. So start linking with those in your in-person network. Start with the folks that you are pretty sure will say yes and that you see regularly. Request one recommendation from a current or former boss or professor or client and give back. Provide one recommendation. This is about giving and taking. So if you're asking for a recommendation, give a recommendation. And you could even give one without anyone asking you. I've been given a few recommendations before where I was like, oh, I didn't even ask this person to write these nice things about me. That's so nice. I'm going to return the favor. And last but not least, I know I sound like a broken record, but complete your profile to all-star strength. If you don't complete your profile, your chances of getting missed are much higher, and then you're doing 50, 75% of the work, and it might not lead to results that you want. So get to 100%, get to all-star status. There's also additional resources on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions that I can't help answer, this is the Help Center, and you don't even have to be logged in to ask questions. So you just go to the Help Center and you can type in a question and hopefully there's an answer there. For those who are Merrill-Hirsch students or alumni on today's webinar, we have an exclusive online network in LinkedIn called the Merrill-Hirsch University Career Network, and it's to help students and alumni stay in touch with one another and what's going on with the university. We also have a selective job board on there where employers who send us job opportunities or internship opportunities, we post those. If you're not a Merrill-Hirsch student or alum, check out other schools or other groups or professional affiliations that you're affiliated with that might also have a LinkedIn group and LinkedIn presence. And we have some upcoming events. First, I'll talk about LinkedIn Part 2. So this was LinkedIn Part 1, and LinkedIn Part 2 is leveraging LinkedIn in career management. So that's really, okay, I have the basics of LinkedIn, I'm at all-star status. How can I really leverage this tool to what I need to do, what I hope to do with this tool? So that's going to be Tuesday, March 8th, 5:30 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's online again. And then the other two events are in person. So we have a video interview tips workshop. That's Thursday, February 11th, 6 to 8 p.m. And that's a really special workshop because we've never offered it before. And this is our first workshop specifically geared towards video interviewing. And if anyone has done an interview recently and has done a video interview and felt like it didn't go right, or maybe it went okay, but you could have done better, or if you've never experienced this at all, this would be a great workshop to go to. And it's free and open to the public. The other event, the First Avenue Career Expo, is a little bit of ways from now. It's Friday, April 1st, and that's a career expo for students and alumni who've graduated in the past 10 years. So 3 great workshops coming up, and all this information can be found on the Merrill-Hirsch website under the Career Services section. Our time is up now, and here's where I'd love to hear questions or thoughts or ideas and get to know what you guys are thinking about. I know this is a lot of information, and I try to condense it down to just the main points. So look over that call to action list, and if you can do those steps, you'll be ready for LinkedIn Part 2. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts? And if so, please put them in the chat box, and I would be glad to answer them.